That's policy.
That's what Brian said. He said you're talking awful lot to me. I said, do you watch
Is he
it?
trying to tell you
I
to
said,
like,
do you
keep you
watch it?
quiet?
Do you watch it?
Or?
He goes, yeah. I thought, well, yeah, I understand that part. That's pretty boring.
He has sometimes, I know.
All right, I call this work session of the Luray Town Council is now in session. Danielle, well, yeah, okay. Well, Danielle, go ahead and call the roll.
Mayor Dolphmeyer.
Here.
Mr. Vickers.
Here.
Ms. Lillard.
Here.
Mr. Shiro.
Here.
Mr. Pettit.
Here.
Mr. Sowers.
Here.
Mr. Webb.
Here.
Okay, if you'll stand and join me in a moment of silence, and I will ask that you remember all those involved in today's tragic event here in Luray. Councilman Pettit, will you lead us in our pledge of allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, are there any additions to or deletions from the agenda?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to move that we add item 5, which would be a closed meeting, to the agenda. And the purpose of a closed meeting would be to discuss, to obtain legal advice concerning the Luray Landing project.
Second that.
Any discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Sowers.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Vickers.
Yes.
Ms. Lillard.
Yes.
Mr. Shiro.
Yes.
Mr. Pettit.
Yes.
Okay, Luray Landing, Mr. Burke.
Yes, sir. Council's received a request from Baker Development Partnership to amend the developers agreement for Luray Landing. They're hoping to amend it due to a reduction in the total residential development of the site associated with the dedication of property to the Luray Rescue Company as well as to the Lord Fairfax Community College. They have submitted the draft, or their requested amendment to the development. In addition, there's an updated development plan in your packets. Staff have reviewed the proposed amendments. The primary concern that staff have is related to timing, related to the dedication of funding for both water and sewer improvements. As it's drafted, the funding would be made at the time of the recordation of the last set of final plats for residential units. Depending on how the developer would submit the plats for recordation, they could come in with phases, and the final phase could be a number of years out. There is a concern that the more with the lift station improvements are needed prior, as soon as the first homes are constructed to facilitate adequate sewage capacity in that area. The water improvements could occur at a later time, presumably somewhere mid construction. We have contacted representatives from Baker with this concern, and Baker indicated that they'd be willing to talk with council about that at tonight's meeting. This is basically just an opportunity for council to discuss any concerns they might have with Baker. The caution statement that I need to express to you from our attorney is that proffers associated with this agreement, we can't negotiate with them. We can express concerns to Baker, and if they see fit, they can amend the developer's agreement to accommodate any of our concerns, but at the end of the day, what they present is what council would have to consider when council, if you consider the amended agreement. You have an option to either say yes or say no. If we say no, then the property is held to the original developer's agreement. We tend to agree with Baker that holding them to that original development agreement would probably prohibit any future development of that site. And we do recognize that there should be an amendment considered by council to facilitate development under the current conditions, both economic and developmental wise. So this is where we're at, and just,
Okay.
I don't know if you want to.
Thank you, Mr. Burke, yeah. Anybody from Baker Development want to speak? Glad to have you. Well, we may have some questions, but did you want to speak before the questions, or just? Okay, all right, thank you, Rodney. All right, anybody have questions for Baker Development?
Okay, this has been amended twice now. It was am I right in reading 2006, then 2013, and this is the next change to the P&D? Is that what I've read?
Well,
P&D was
the changes were to accommodate the dedication of properties to the rescue company and to LFCC.
That's the current one though, right? The change you're talking about today.
No, well, the change today is a reduction in the required improvements associated with the planned neighborhood development.
Okay, so my whole adult life, this has been set up, but it's now happening. And since some of the land's been given away and done different ways, and they couldn't be sold for a while, I guess, the lots, or they would have been. So what are we changing? Just the pump station for sewage?
The upward, well, what is changing is, again, due to the fact that land has been donated, it has reduced the available area
Right.
associated for
So the less
residential
residences.
development. So there's a recognition of council that there is a reduced number of residential units that can be placed within that planned neighborhood development. And in recognition of the reduced number of residential dwellings with the development, Baker is seeking a reduction in the amount, in the type and nature of the improvements that would be necessary to facilitate that development. What they're proposing would be a contribution of $100,000 towards the water system
Right.
and $300,000 towards the sewer system.
I like that concept. I think we're much better off with a different system out there than the original line that was proposed to go out to 11. My question is, the water tank, that would be the only available water supply that would be through the existing system?
The intent of placing a tank, we would connect to the two primary, there's an 8-inch and a 10-inch water service in that area. We would connect to that. The ultimate configuration of the tank and pump system would allow, the pumps would be able to operate not only to push water into the tank that's constructed within this area, but it could be valved to push water up to the tank at the other tank, so that we could facilitate water throughout the system.
Do you agree that it would make a much,
It makes much more sense to the town's overall master plan for water delivery and fire protection in this area.
so would the infrastructure, the laterals in between the tank and where the source, can that handle that?
The water lines.
The water lines, can
should.
they handle that capacity?
Yes. We estimate it'd be about a $200,000 to $250,000 investment in both the tank, the 100,000-gallon tank, and the pumping system and associated water connections to make the improvement that benefits the town overall.
In an ideal world, it would be nice if we had some wells out there as well to
And
boost the,
long-term, yes, sir, what we would hope to be able to do would be ultimately put in a package plant out there with a well so that we would have not only the water plant that we have, but if that ever had issues with it, we would be able to supplement the water supply from there. But that's a long-term goal for the town. But it could be accomplished by the placement and installation of a tank out at
and that would be beneficial not only to any new development in that area, but to some of the existing services in that part of town too.
Absolutely.
Would it not?
Absolutely. It's not limited just to the residential. It would benefit all of the surrounding business. and other-
And each lot would still pay a connection fee
Yes, sir.
on top of that. Well, first, in respect to the community college, I mean, Rodney, I mean, I don't think people quite realize is not only did you donate the land, you really wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the funds that you helped raise. And I just really want to acknowledge that's a pretty awesome thing to do that. When I came 3/15/06 is my first day here, and that was the night they had a public hearing for this when I worked for the town. It was 15. I was thinking today coming up, it was 15 years ago. We've been talking about this, and of course now we're starting to see some movement. I think it's kind of gone a little different way. So I assume I wasn't here when the community college came in. Y'all amended the plan, amended the agreement, and this is kind of now that you have the rescue squad. Basically what you want to do, if I understand this, you want to keep your density. You've changed part of it, but now you want to keep the density that you originally showed back in many years ago. Is the density a little different?
Density was
60 units.
382 units, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're removing some units but
Yes.
the rest of it will pretty much remain what you showed.
The original.
Right.
386 is on the original.
Right. So you're kind of keeping, I guess my only question is, and it's just my comment, I wonder if it's really more valuable, and you'll find this out, as kind of a business park. If you had some other interests come, commercial, a restaurant, or a big box store, I don't know. I mean, if that did come along, I mean, that'd be something y'all would entertain. Right, okay. And that just, to me, just seems like a better, that's just, my personal opinion, and again, that might change and you might, be able to develop it housing, but so I'm open-minded to the future that if other, non-housing development comes in and, you want to change this, then I think that makes sense. That's kind of how I see it personally with what's going on General Drive, and looks like you've sold a couple more lots there. I could just see it sort of developing as a business park. That's just me. But otherwise, as long as the staff has read this, and I've read it, but as long as everyone's comfortable, then I think it seems like you've done a very thorough job of explaining what you want to do, and I'm comfortable moving forward. But I just kind of want to state that that's just sort of how I kind of see it developing that way. But again, you might see it differently, and ultimately you're the ones trying to sell the lots, and so.
And as I understand this from some conversations, if I'm correct with this, that the original proffers that were a part of this P&D when it began has actually changed as well as far as the plan itself. Not just what Baker Development has suggested, but the water main that was originally supposed to come from the West Main Tower, which now is proven to be, when looking at the numbers, not really feasible. It wouldn't support it. And of course, I know with the original proffers, the money that would have been involved in bringing that water main across 211 from the West Main Tower with blasting and rock excavation and everything else. I mean, you look at these huge numbers of what some of that would have cost, where versus today, the on-site storage tank is a much better option, not only on the money side of things, but just for the service of that community, the commercial side of it, the fire flow, all of that. So things have changed. The pump station too, I believe, the town is looking for something a little bit different in the sewage pump station than what was originally proposed. So really, I know Baker's coming here tonight looking for a change with the proffers, and I I understand that we'd be looking at that anyway, because what was originally proposed is really not feasible in today's situation. So it's not just the reduction of actual building lots from the 386 to 233 or wherever it's at, but it's just the actual water supply, the sewer pump stations, all that being a better fit today than what it was years ago when it was first.
And the change in the technology too, and the.
Yes.
I mean, that's. Yeah, exactly. The change, the technology's improved.
Tank can fill at night, and then, if you need fire flow or whatever, you serve access during the day.
I have a vague memory of discussion about a pond, some type of, that was,
The stormwater is still included in.
where on the map is that pond?
Well, the pond would be to the lower left.
Okay. So that hasn't really changed.
No, the stormwater component of the
Okay.
proffers is basically remaining the same.
All right, this is a dumb question. What's the white areas laid out? Is that,
That's West Louis.
That's West
subdivision.
Louis,
That's
isn't it?
existing, yes, sir.
this is a major development for Luray, from what I can see.
Yes, sir, if development of the 230, 240 homes were to come in, yes, sir, it would be a big addition to the town's population.
What's the, like roughly speaking, what's the footprint of a 100,000 gallon tank height? And do you have a sense of where, I know that's at town's discretion, but mutual agreement, do you have a sense of where that could go? How, is it gonna be an eyesore, or is it gonna be something that sits relatively low and gonna be a big deal?
It's half the size of the tank at the water treatment facility.
Okay.
So it doesn't take up a huge area. And I think I think Brian's discussed with y'all about potentially the larger green area between West
Right
Louis.
there behind West Louis.
Yeah,
The calculation according to Racy actually only requires a 20,000 gallon.
right,
I think the town would like 100,000 gallon to better serve the entire community.
correct.
Of course, for your benefit, we want it to be something that's not a huge eyesore, right? Because
That's kind of down in a little bit of a hole there, like I say, right
Ah,
behind
okay.
West Louis, that little green block
Mm.
is actually showing 2.16 acres in it.
I like the idea if you have pathways for people to go through the green space from the different streets.
Oh, you see that, Mr. Cyrus?
yes, sir. Yeah, I do. The 2.16 there,
Like I
kind
said,
of
that's kind of a low area anyway.
left of center. Okay. All right, thank you. That's great.
Here's another dumb question. Is the green areas, will that become something the town mows every week, or is that, how's that work out?
Potentially,
HOAs.
yeah.
Homeowners Association.
Then they would have a plan that it gets maintained, okay.
Yes, would be no burden.
So Steve, as I understand it, staff doesn't have concerns with the calculations that are provided so far as volume and serving the needs of the,
No,
both
sir.
fire flow and the residential. Your main concern is timing on the payment for it?
Yes, sir, we have concern that the needs for the infrastructure improvements would need to be put into place sooner than potentially the final plat. If the developer came in with a single plat for all of the residential property, then that would probably be okay because the plats would be approved before construction occurred. However, if they came in and had a phased construction of 50 homes, over a long period of time, the final recordation of residential dwellings could be 15, 20 years into the future. And that the staff's concern is just that the infrastructure needs need to be accomplished earlier in construction than could occur.
This might be a crazy thought, but in lieu of the fact that a lot of this CARES funding that we're going to receive has to be dedicated to utility infrastructure improvement, is there some public-private partnership kind of thing we could come up with where we could we can upfront some of that and then get it back from the developer over a period of time? Would that be a possibility?
Again,
I'm
It is
not,
possible.
I'm just asking, is it a
And
possibility?
I apologize to the Bakers. I only brought this to their attention today,
Uh-huh.
after looking over the information and actually getting into the details of that. So we've not had the opportunity to talk with the Jenkins about that, but it is a concern that staff has as we go forward with council's consideration of that. Could we front the money and then the funds come in at a later date? Absolutely. Does it complicate life for our treasurer having to be aware of when funds would come in rather than having a specified date? Yes, it does. But anything can be accomplished. I'm happy that the Jenkins did recognize a good contribution towards these improvements. It's simply a matter of if there's any way that they would recognize our concern about the timing of them to possibly work with us, that absolutely can happen.
I guess I'm looking beyond just the development in terms of the residential. I'm looking at potential for commercial development out there
Oh,
as
that's
well.
right, yeah.
And that, as I see, would be some incentive for some kind of partnership in that regard.
Where the engineer's saying a 20,000 gallon tank would serve this community, but
If we
a
could.
100,000 gallon tank would serve.
Exactly, and it's
much more
an
of the
opportunity for us to
community.
leverage
Right.
some of this money even greater
Right.
and open up this, this area out there for.
So 25, 30 years from now, we don't have
We don't have to.
another issue we're trying to figure out
Exactly.
with water and sewer. out
That's
there.
exactly what I'm thinking.
And that staff absolutely believes that the sooner that the town would get this infrastructure in, the better it helps development as a whole. And that's the only reason that we're hoping to communicate that to the Jenkins, that if there's a more defined schedule of assistance, that would be beneficial to the town.
Sure, we can certainly talk to our builder about that as well.
Okay. Okay,
This is just kind of the first stab at it.
sure.
So we have to be conscious.
Anybody else have questions? Well, thank you all for coming tonight. We'll certainly discuss this and get back to you. And we thank you all very much. And as Ligon mentioned, we certainly thank you for your contribution to the town already through the rescue squad and the community college. That's just wonderful. Thank you. Y'all don't have to leave. I mean, it's.
We don't have to, but.
Fun's just getting ready to
You
start.
probably want to, but you don't have to.
These things are really interesting.
Sure, most of the community would thank them for General Drive connecting.
Oh, yeah. Well, that too, yeah.
Caterpillar. When you get a convenience like that, you don't realize, it's like, wow.
Yeah, dude, it's no joke.
How much of a
Yeah.
difference that makes.
All right, Mr. Burke, salary study?
Yes, sir. The town has worked and received input from a number of our neighboring communities regarding the salary ranges for the various positions and their equivalents in those localities. Based on our review of the information provided, we have come up with averages for the various positions and developed some recommended adjustments to our salary ranges for council's consideration and discussion. The one thing that I did not catch until this evening, for the utility count specialist, typically we like to keep a $20,000 spread between the low and high. And with our proposed increase to 40,000 for that min, we would suggest a $60,000.
For what was that, Steve? I'm sorry.
Under administration, the
specialist.
final
Oh.
entry utility
Oh,
account
okay,
specialist.
I got you. Thank you.
Taking that up to 40 and 60. But again, this is only for council's discussion. The good news is that even including Harrisonburg and Winchester, we are fairly competitive with a lot of the positions, salary ranges that we have. The main ones that are looking at adjustment would be our police positions, but we have a few within our other departments that we think aligning them would allow us to better compete with our neighboring communities. We just wanted to present that to y'all. If council is comfortable, we can reconsider it or have it up for consideration at a future meeting.
So we would have to, the recommended would be the overall recommended increases from in the ranges.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we would be approving, or,
Yes, sir.
I mean, are you gonna have specific recommendations on other positions, or that's something to just be done? If we approve this, will you be able to take care of the specific changes that you wanna make?
Well, the only specific would be there's a few positions that by going to the minimum would bring their current salaries to a higher, to the new minimum, and we estimate that amount would be about $13,000 of all of our positions to bring everyone up to the new minimums as recommended.
And that's something we can afford right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Does this factor in the new police salaries?
Yes, sir.
It does, okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I guess so, yes, never mind the minimum. I see it.
Hey, council, what's your pleasure? You want to?
I'm fine with the recommendations that the staff. Someone else feels?
Then, if you're comfortable, we'll include that for consideration at your July meeting. Last item that we have for council's consideration and discussion this evening, American Rescue Plan Act, we are hoping to get the final, I guess, go from interim final to final. I don't know how the Department of Treasury will word it, but we expect that to happen sometime in July. Until that happens, we've developed a draft of an RFP for fund management services. We had discussed that as one of the options that staff would recommend as far as use of the ARPA money. We would hire an individual, a firm, however they would respond, to assist Mary and Danielle, not only to track all of the data, but we'd also ask them to assist us with all of the financial reporting that is required back to the Department of Treasury, as well as use their expertise to identify any options that council could consider for use of the funds.
Is that gonna be hard to find somebody to do that?
Well, recognizing that ARPA is brand new and there's no final guidance on it, we're hoping that find someone or some firm that has had either experience with accounting in the past or had some exposure to the CARES Act funding that occurred.
But this is a short-term job though, right?
Uh,
I mean, years maybe,
Yeah,
but
it could roll through 2026, depending on how our expenditures occur. But the ARPA money it has to be spent by 24, but, I'm sorry, it has to be allocated by 2024, has to be spent by 2026. So the contract is drafted to have this be a 3-year contract to take us through 2024 with the potential for 2 additional 1-year extensions, depending on how much more assistance we will need.
So this position, other than the financial component of it, would that be the contact point for the nonprofits and the businesses and those types of entities that will be?
If we choose to make them, yes, sir, it can be the point of contact.
I think that would be a logical thing to do, to have whether it's a firm or a person or whatever the situation might be, but to have that person responsible all the way through from the point of contact to submitting the reports to the feds at the end would make it a lot more cohesive, I think.
And I agree, because any funds that we provide to a business, nonprofit, what have you, we, the town, are responsible for reporting how those funds are used back to the Department of Treasury. So yes, sir, it would make sense to have this.
And I wouldn't be too concerned about the person being familiar with the guidelines, because the guidelines are going to be evolving. I mean, the main thing that the person is, I would think our entity would be the financial end of it, and the ability to keep good records and represent the town well with the people that are applying for the funds.
Well, I mean, obviously, that we're gonna decide how it's spent.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I
Spent,
mean, it'd be
and
our
this
decision
person
how
would
it's
then
spent, yeah.
Take it from there.
Yeah.
Make sure that
Just to have it,
And
just to have it.
Is that
And
the
report to
idea,
us.
or are they also gonna be something of a compliance officer of sorts?
They can be.
Am I not reading, because that's kind of what I'm reading, but.
Yeah, we've tried to include everything, and if they come in and say, I'm comfortable doing this, this, and this.
Okay.
Then, again, what we would, staff see this as, we would put this RFP out, we would find out who's available. Most likely, what we would propose would be staff would shortlist 2 or 3 individuals, have them come in and talk with council, and then have y'all approve whoever we would award, because.
Yeah, Joe,
y'all
I
have to
wasn't,
be comfortable
I wasn't
with it.
suggesting they'd make the decision on who gets the funding. I was just suggesting that they would be the entity that collects the applications and evaluates it.
Sure,
and,
sure,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
the decision would be ours on.
Of course, yeah.
And then the other item that we've drafted, part of the AARPA requirements or strong recommendations is to solicit input from the community about how the funds should be developed. So we've drafted an implementation survey, and if council wants to go forward with that, you can absolutely do that. If you don't, it's not a requirement. And if there's any other information that you would like, if we do go forward with a survey, we can definitely incorporate that. But we wanted to give you all the opportunity to provide as much solicitation from the community as possible as we.
So we
develop
like do
our
a
program.
survey monkey or something, just go out
Yes,
with
sir.
it?
Can
Well,
you
we-
add
we-
some,
we-
like
we-
an open-ended question? I don't see anything to that effect.
Like another.
Like another category?
Um,
I don't know if there are.
well, that's the problem, is that,
Can't, in the Survey Monkey,
well, no, we can't put an other. The problem with doing that is that what I tried to do in this draft
There you
was
go.
identify what appears to be allowed
Yeah.
within the guidance. If we put in an other,
People be asking for all kinds of stuff.
yes, and I don't know that, it might give us some ideas to pursue,
Mm-hmm.
but
No, that's a fair point.
I think that's a good.
I'm sure we'd have somebody that said we need a pool, and I don't know that it
Or
necessarily.
splash park.
You know where that, yeah.
So, anyway.
Get all everybody's stuff.
We can absolutely do that, but it does open up the potential.
No, that's
for
fair.
folks to
That's a fair
have,
point.
Ideas that couldn't be considered. But we can definitely do that if council desires.
I mean, I would still like to see age on here, age of the residents.
Okay.
Can we ask that?
Well, we can't, they don't have to answer it,
You know,
right?
yes, we can't make it a requirement, but we can ask, information about.
Will this be anonymous? Will they know who, I mean, will we know who replied?
As conceived, yes, but we can make it as, we can make a contact, we can require contact information, or we don't have to require it.
How do we send this out, Survey Monkey? Do we have that many email addresses, or,
Well, we wouldn't send it out, we would post it on social media, and we would have
Okay.
paper copies up at
so
the
people that don't
front
use
desk.
social media may not see this?
Right, that's why we'd have paper copies up here when you pay your bill.
Yeah, well, not
And
everybody
if
walks
we
in.
wanted to, we could include it in the
I
bill.
would think send it out in
Yeah,
the bill.
send
would
it
be a good
out.
thing.
The water bill, okay.
Yeah, so again, there's no time constraint put on us by
Right.
ARPA. We simply, if council desires to get input, we have the opportunity now to.
Well, this is kinda like our listening thing that we are planning on doing. I highly recommend that we get people's opinions.
Mhm.
Nowhere does it say we're gonna go with any one single thing here, we just wanna know what people think,
Yes, sir.
which makes sense.
So we can include as much information about the individual, about me, we can expand that to include other information if council would like that.
Looks,
I think age is important to see who's wanting more of the different type of facilities. That'll show us,
Okay, we can
I
definitely.
think, good information.
Is there other information that y'all would think beneficial? I mean, we can include in other. Again, it might give us ideas that we hadn't thought of, but it also gives the opportunity for people to have some unrealistic expectations.
It does,
based on the
yeah.
constraints that ARPA has established.
So will they be taking this online on social media, like Page News does their questions?
It would be online and paper, yes, sir. We want to have it flexible because not everyone uses social
But
media.
you gonna have to let it go for a while to get.
We can. Again, there's no time constraint.
that'd be another good, the Page Valley News,
That's what
that
I'm
would be a,
saying.
that would be a good.
He asks questions time to time.
He
that-
puts the surveys up, maybe he'd be willing to.
We can reach out to Randy and see if he'd be willing to work with us.
Well, if nothing else, he would have you filled out the town of Luray.
Yeah, yeah.
Rescue plan survey. Yes, no, yeah. I'm sure he'd help us.
Well, we'll refine that and then make sure everyone's comfortable before we put it out. We can run it for a month and a half to try and get as much input as possible.
How does SurveyMonkey do it with the paper? I mean, we'd have to keep two different, we'd have to have an online voting and a paper votes, or how would we,
Well,
how do you do
what
that?
happens is all the information comes back to the town. We assimilate the paper numbers into the database. Effectively, we fill it out for people who don't use paper.
Well, we don't traditionally get a whole lot of response, do we?
For the
Give them money while
annual
you will.
surveys, we typically get anywhere from 1 to 200 people. Not a lot, but it's more than not asking.
Well, it also shows the effort that we want to know. I mean, the age, would you put in that, in the section about me, somehow have a statement, somebody
Was
could
it, are you?
signify, things that they're AARP type people.
No, we can definitely put in that.
All right.
And the age thing, that was kind of why I'm a student in where it was intended to pick up the young, but we can definitely ask additional information about folks responding.
And you also don't know the data you get if it's true or not. I mean, people can say what they want. They can circle they're a resident when they're not.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
We would hope that most folks responding, if they're
If
taking
there's
the time to respond.
if there's a party out there that wants to do something that you never know, man. I think it's a great idea. Put out a survey.
I think if you went door to door with those surveys and people could sign up.
You, Jerry, I bet you, if you and I got together, we could cover half the
You think
town.
we could? How long, it takes a
I'm
long
not sure I want to do that.
Y'all go for it.
Let us know how it goes, will you?
Stephanie could do that.
Okay. All right, anything else on that, Steve?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Jerry?
Mayor, I'd like to move that the town council convene and go into closed meeting for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia. The subject matter is the Luray Landing Developers Agreement.
Discussion? Danielle?
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. Shira?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
was taking those accolades and forgot what we were doing.
Yeah, to look good, yeah. Mayor, I'll move the closed meeting be adjourned and the Luray Town Council reconvene in open session.
Okay, Danielle, will you please?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Danielle?
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sauer?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Further move that with respect to the just completed closed session and to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the town council.
I'll second that.
Danielle?
Mayor Dolphmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Ms. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Sauer?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
All right, just a couple more things. Of course, tomorrow evening at 5:30, we have the Living Legacy video premiere. And 11 o'clock Thursday at Figaro's Pet Emporium. That will be the ribbon cutting, grand opening, whatever. We are dealing with a lot of mode, or not mode, lot controversies. I don't know. That seems to be the word of the day. Getting a lot of calls on that. I don't know what it's just a difficult problem, a difficult thing right now. Steve, you want to add anything to that, or we're just okay? Anybody else?
Do we know, do we know anything about all the stuff in July? When's our picnic? The second?
Second. I think it's a third. It's a third.
It's a third.
Second is Friday.
Okay, the picnic is on Friday, right? Do we know anything about Stanley? Are they having a parade that?
Yes,
this year?
yes. 3 o'clock.
You need
No,
us
it's
telling
what
you
do
we're gonna
we
show
gotta
up or
meet.
not?
What time do we need to meet, Steve? Did you send something around about that?
Usually it's the chief of police that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's usually about 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock on stop. 4 o'clock on Saturday, and we'll see if Bo will drive or somebody will. Anybody else want to go? We usually meet here. We'll get a time. Usually 4.
You need
Ron
to
can
go
have his
there.
picture taken with Miss Virginia, and that's always a big deal for him.
The event, the parade starts at 6, I guess, but we show up at 4 here.
Well, we'll get those times straightened out. Yeah, yeah. I don't know the
She
exact
wants to know
times.
now.
No, I want to know about the picnic y'all talking about.
You still don't know about the picnic? It's Friday
We can talk
at
about it.
11,
Okay.
I believe.
No.
And we usually
Yeah. If you want to help us cook or whatever we do,
All
anywhere
thoughts.
from 10 on, but we usually don't eat until 12 or so.
Good move, Steph.
All right, anybody, is that all the schedule for July? I think, anything else going on? You all have your seminar or whatever, and what's that, the 15th? Who's going? Stephanie, Ligon, Jason? 14th, 15th?
15.
Okay, okay. All right, anything else from anybody? All right, meeting is adjourned.